Food is a basic human right, necessary for optimal health and well-being. Food protects the right of all human beings to live in dignity, free from hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition. It is important that food is safe. That is, it is free from contaminants and will not cause illness or harm. Unsafe food creates a vicious cycle of illness and malnutrition, threatening the health of the most vulnerable. The World Health Organization estimates that 600 million people across the world fall ill after eating contaminated food, and 420,000 people die every year. The majority of these cases involve gastrointestinal issues, though they can also produce neurological, gynecological, and immunological symptoms. As a result, foodborne illnesses are a burden on public health and contribute significantly to the cost of healthcare. Food contamination can also affect the economy and society, undermining food exports, tourism, livelihoods of food handlers, and economic growth, both in developed and developing countries. Food contaminants are usually infectious or toxic in nature and are caused by bacteria, viruses, parasites, or chemical substances entering the body through contaminated food or water. While everyone is exposed to foodborne health risks, people living in poverty are the most exposed and vulnerable. Examples of unsafe food include uncooked foods of animal origin and fruits and vegetables contaminated with pesticides. Food safety is a scientific discipline describing the handling, preparation, and storage of food in ways that prevent foodborne illness. A food safety hazard is defined as any biological, chemical, or physical agent which would cause illness or injury in the absence of control. Biological hazards are organisms or substances produced by organisms that pose a threat to human health. They are a major concern in food because they cause foodborne illness outbreaks. These organisms can affect human health, including infection, intoxication, and even death, with diarrhea and vomiting the most common symptoms. Examples include Salmonella, Campylobacter, Listeria, and E. coli. A chemical hazard is any chemical agent that has the potential to cause illness or injury. Chemical hazards in food can be classified into chemicals that occur naturally, chemicals that can be used in the formulation of your finished product, or chemicals that are unintentionally or accidentally present in your finished product. Chemical hazards include acrylamide, arsenic in rice, bisphenol A, dioxins, and heavy metals such as mercury, lead, and cadmium. Long-term health problems associated with chemical contaminants include cancer and neurological disorders. A physical hazard is any extraneous object or foreign matter in a food item which may cause illness or injury to a person consuming the product. Examples include bone or bone chips, glass, wood, feces, plastic, sewage, waste, sand, gravel, soil, packaging, metal, or any foreign material not normally present in food products. Sources for such contamination include raw materials, badly maintained facilities and equipment, improper production procedures, and poor employee practices. Food safety hazards can be unintentionally introduced at any stage along the food chain, from farm to fork. The food system is currently facing a number of challenges which need to be considered in order to ensure the safety of our food for all people across the globe. At present, the World Health Organization estimates that approximately 1.2 billion people in the world are living in poverty. These individuals are forced to live in environments without decent shelter, clean water, or adequate sanitation, and they are the most exposed to foodborne health risks. Similarly, we are an aging population, and elderly people are more vulnerable to foodborne disease and more likely to experience serious outcomes, such as death. Changing lifestyles, urbanization, and travel have resulted in changing consumer behaviours, with more people eating convenience foods and consuming food outside of the home, and migrant populations demanding traditional foods in the countries of settlement. By 2050, global food systems will need to feed and nourish more than 9 billion people in a safe, responsible and sustainable way. It has been proposed that global food production will need to increase by 50% to feed this growing population, leading to greater intensification and industrialisation of agriculture and food production. This could lead to food safety challenges. For example, an excessive use of veterinary medicines in animals or pesticides in plants could result in an increased amount of residues in food and contribute to antimicrobial resistance. Simultaneously, extreme climate and weather events due to climate change are predicted to impact food production, storage and distribution systems. The control measures initiated in response to climate change may generate new food safety problems due to the novelty of climate-induced issues, for example, new pest species, and the unfamiliarity of the sector, for example, farmers, in dealing with them. It is important to understand how intensification and climate change will affect the provision of safe food and food safety practices across the food chain. Moreover, food and drink have become a global industry, with many positive aspects, including access, affordability, and variety of food on the market. However, the integrity of increasingly complex food supply chains is often compromised. This is because the sourcing and transport of ingredients and products across a range of countries and supply chain players for raw materials, processing, and retail creates difficulties for surveillance and facilitates the transmission of foodborne diseases, hazards, and risks over longer distances, and increases the number of opportunity for fraudulent activities. For example, in 2017 and 18, the contamination of ready-to-eat meat with Listeria monocytogenes in South Africa resulted in 1,060 cases of listeriosis, 216 deaths, and an international risk management response because the contaminated product had been exported to 15 other countries in Africa. The challenges facing the food system are enormous, and the safety of food is a shared responsibility across the entire food system. Together, the food industry, government, academia, and consumers are all working to ensure the safety of the food we consume. Food safety legislation, control measures, and monitoring procedures are in place to minimise the risk of contamination and ensure the safety of our food.